Hi students, welcome to Easy Elimu Learning Simplified. My name is Mbide and in today's class we're going to learn about adjectives. We're going to define adjectives, differentiate between gradable adjectives and ungradable adjectives, and also look at comparison in adjectives. Before we proceed, it is important to define what an adjective is. And an adjective is a word that describes a noun. For example, if you say a tall person, a small house, a big house, a small car, the words that we are using to describe the nouns are what we call adjectives. So, like in the sentence, a small car. The noun is car, the adjective is small. And so adjectives are said to be gradable because they show the extent of something. How small is the house? How big is the house? How tall is the person? So that is why we call them gradable, for those that are gradable. And for you to determine how tall is something, how small is something, for you to determine the gradability, we use comparison. So we use the three main degrees of comparison. That is the simple. For example, when you say this house is small, that is the simple. The comparative, which if you say this house is smaller, and the superlative, for example, if you say this house is the smallest. So we use the comparative when we are comparing two people or two things. For example, if you're looking at your house and another person's house, then you say our house is bigger or our house is smaller. Or July is colder than January. So you're comparing two things or two people. And then we use the superlative when we are comparing more than two people or more than two things. So let's say you're looking at maybe four houses. You look at them and then you say, this house is the biggest. This house is the smallest. Or July is the coldest month of the year. You're comparing it to the other 11 months of the year. So we use comparative when comparing two people or two things or two situations, but we use the superlative when comparing more than two. So we can have a look at a few examples. Large, larger, largest. Cold, colder, coldest. Cheap, cheaper, cheapest. Small, smaller, smallest. Tall, taller, tallest. And finally, hard, harder, hardest. So for most adjectives, you find that for the comparative, you will add er to the adjective, and for the superlative, you add est to the adjective. But this does not apply to all adjectives, as we are going to see. So there are a few things to note when it comes to some spelling changes for the adjectives. For example, if an adjective ends in y, for the comparative, you drop the y and then you add ier to form the comparative, and then drop the y and add iest to form the superlative. So for example, the word busy, busy, you drop the y, you add ier to form busier for the comparative, and then you drop the y and add iest to form busiest for the superlative. The same will apply for words like lucky. and happy. You drop the Y. Then if it is comparative, you add IER. If it is the superlative, you add IEST. Now, there are some adjectives that you can't add IER or IEST. They will not make grammatical sense. And for them, for the comparative, you add more and leave the adjective as it is, or most for the superlative and leave the base form of the adjective as it is. For example, a word like intelligent, you'll say more intelligent, most intelligent. Important, more important, most important. Now, a trick here is that most of these adjectives that behave this way are the longer ones, the longer ones. Pleasant, more pleasant, most pleasant. And lastly, there are some exceptions. These are adjectives that don't take more and most, and we also don't add ER or EST, they just completely change. And the most common ones are good for the comparative becomes better, for the superlative, best. Bad, worse, worst. Much, more, most. Little, less, least. Many, more, most. And finally, far, farther, farthest. So for the last one, you note that there's a spelling change. For the simple, it is FAR. But for the comparative and the superlative, the spelling changes to FUR and then ER or EST. Take note of that because FUR on its own is another noun that means a totally different thing. So note for the word FAR, FAR, there's a spelling change. So we can do a little bit more practice. A word like intelligent, an adjective like intelligent, you can't say intelligenta or intelligentest. So this is an adjective that takes more. So intelligent, more intelligent, most intelligent. New, newer, newest. Old, older, oldest. So, for example, in a sentence, you can say, this newspaper is old. This newspaper is older than that newspaper. Or, this newspaper is the oldest. Sharon is intelligent. Sharon is more intelligent. Sharon is the most intelligent. So for further practice, you can also attempt to write down some adjectives in their simple form and then change them to comparative and superlative. And that's it for this session. I hope you're now able to define what an adjective is, give a few examples of adjectives, and you're also able to compare them in the simple, in the comparative and superlative. You have taken note of some of the spelling changes that happen, and also you know some of the adjectives that take more and most and the exceptions that don't take more and most and don't take ER and EST. For further practice, you can have a look at the quiz. You're supposed to fill the gaps with the correct form of adjectives given in the brackets. So I can do one, then you do the rest. My pen is dash than Jane's, and the adjective is good. So before we even attempt to answer, the first thing is to look at that sentence. My pen is dash than Jane's. This means that we are comparing two things or pens that belong to two people. So we are being asked about the comparative. And then the adjective is good. So good is one of the exceptions. You can't say gooder, so you say better. So my pen is better than Jane's. Thank you for tuning in and see you in the next class.